making a will. So the actual part of making a will. Now, how old do you have to be for making a will? Can the kids here make the will? I have my Xboxes and I want it to be given to so and so friend. Can they write that in their will?
All the games.
All the games, that's what they care of. That's the property they possess. Well, the invalid age, valid age, here the thing is, Islamically, once you have reached the age of understanding, reached the age of maturity, financial maturity, you go ahead and you are allowed to make will. Now you have reached the age. Unfortunately, in this country, people think that as soon as you reach the age of 18, a light blows up and then you're matured. That's not the condition in Islam. In Islam, we evaluate the person. If he has reached that financial maturity, then we say, okay, he is now adult, or reached the age of puberty as well, as long as that maturity is there. Okay, and timing of a will. So, when should we make a will? If I am like on my deathbed, can I make a will at that point? Appoint two witnesses and other people and say, I want so and so. My will to be so and so, this much money and so on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned this in Surah Al-Ma'idah, that if you are traveling through the land and the calamity of death befalls you, and so he goes on. But the scholars mention that a will is acceptable even one is at the verge of death. But again, there are certain restrictions that apply. Sometimes people take advantage of it and try to deprive certain relatives during that moment. So that has to be taken care of. But yes, your will be respected, and you will be you should be given that confirmation that it will be fulfilled. And conditions in the bequeathal. There are some conditions which are valid and sometimes it's invalid. For example, if the wasiya itself is wrong, the conditions that he's mentioning is wrong, then it will not be taken into account. Yes. Yeah, even after you die, even if you have a document in your hand and you see that I want $5,000 to be taken from my wealth and open or install a gambling machine, what do you do? What do you do? You say, sorry, you cannot, you cannot do that. Because even though you have a fully executed will, government approved and witnesses signed, Muslims signed that document, what are you going to do? No, there's no way. So executor, again, he's responsible, making sure that, there's no way we are going to accept it. Conditions here, you can have conditions in the bequeathal part, but not the inheritance part. Can you say that once my son reaches 27 years, then my inheritance money should be given to him? Can you do that? You cannot do that, because inheritance now it goes immediate, because it's a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in the bequeathal part, the 1/3 that you are free to distribute, in that one you can specify conditions that I cannot give money to my daughter's daughter, but if I am going to give it as a wasiya, but she should reach the age of 18, for example, then yeah. So you can specify any condition and that will be honored, but only in wasiya, not in the regular heir, Islamic heirship. Okay, and again, this has to be a fair wasiya, fair bequeathal. So usually, people might think about giving 1/3 of their wasiya to wealth to somebody, but you have to evaluate the situation. Sometimes you might not be having a lot of money and your family might be needing it, right? So if you just have a few $1,000s and if you give 1/3, it shouldn't be that your relatives fall into poverty. So you have to make sure you're fair to everybody. And alhamdulillah, if you have more, you can go about that, but the best money that is spent is on your family. So you have to make sure that everybody, they don't have to beg in front of anybody. You leave them fully sufficient. Invalid bequeathal. So people find loopholes and try to do all wrong things, and I just want to mention here. So people come up with fictitious debts. So for example, I have a cousin of mine, we have been friends together and I really love him very much, and I want him to get a lot of money after I die. But Islamically, cousin most probably is not going to get money unless, there's no other relatives left. But what I'll do is, I don't really care about my wife. I don't really care about my parents. What I'll do is I'll make a fictitious debt that, if I have like $80,000, I'll say I took 60,000 loan from this person. So when I die, give it to him. So you're not only exceeding 1/3 part, but you are going a lot, right? So that is again a fictitious debt, and obviously you cannot catch such kind of problems. This person will be in trouble on the day of judgment because he made a fictitious debt. So those kind of things we have to be careful. Same thing with wasiya itself. You cannot go about making fictitious one, and unfair wasiya. So what you do is, you're going to die soon. Probably you have a very serious disease. After 4 or 5 months you will die. So what you do is, you take the money and give it to one of your relatives, the whole thing, right? Well, you can do, but is Islamically halal? Is it the right thing to do? Now you are left with nothing, and all your relatives after you die will get nothing basically. So you gave it as a gift, but now you have to be careful that you basically found a loophole and distributed all your money to others, and this is unfair. So that's a problem. An un-Islamic statement, that's the problem with most of the people. They don't know what Islam is actually all about. Some people will have an Islamic statement that if I die, I should be frozen for 10 days and have all my relatives from all the world come to my ceremony and those things. So now you cross the boundaries of Islam and things like that. So you can mention, somebody, witnesses or executor has to know what is Islamic and un-Islamic and remove those parts. Invalid recipient. Invalid recipient. Who is invalid recipient in your inheritance or wasiya? Non-Muslims, they can get wasiya, non-Muslims. You're non-Muslim, but in actual inheritance they cannot get.
Invalid recipient is the inheritance.
Correct, yes. Yeah, for example, if I cannot specify my son as in the wasiya, right, as an Islamic heir, it's not possible because he's already part of inheritance, so I cannot put him as the recipient of that 1/3 part which I'm free to distribute. So that's invalid. It's an ineligible person. And sometimes also you have to make sure if a person killed him, you have to remove it from the list of wasiya because the murderer cannot be part of this wealth. And invalid amount as well. So you basically mention, I want $40,000 to be given to so-and-so person, that's fine, but you're exceeding 1/3, there's no way going to be restricted. It has to be distributed. You're not following the will, but again, that was not a right will in the first place. And invalid age, we mentioned already that you have to be reaching the age of puberty or the age of financial maturity. This country, unfortunately, you have to go through many channels and routes. That's what I'm going to talk about. Having a lawyer. Many people write the will, but like for example on internet you will find a lot of documents which says, okay, this is Islamic inheritance. But there's a lot of problems, especially in this country when it comes to court. If there are certain words, it might be problematic when executing it. So government will not accept certain wills. So that's where lawyer comes in and he says that certain phrases cannot be used. For example, you have to have every page, at the bottom of every page you have to have initials, right? If you don't have initial, then probably the court will think that you just inserted it in the middle. So that's another thing that lawyers will take care of. And by the way, your will, it should be, you have to make multiple copies. You have to probably keep one with your executor, one with maybe people do in the masjid these days, and your close friends or something like that, or your lawyer even. And you keep updating it. So if you are done with the debt, you update your will. So you keep updating your will as well. And you have to make it notary public as well. The will. it is required by government sometimes, and if you don't have an affidavit or notary public, it will not be respected. And making changes, cross-outs, again, this is a big problem. Some people go and say that, why should I spend money, $500 or so to the lawyers, or just make it myself? But if you have like even a cross-out or some spaces in the middle or somewhere, it's going to be rejected. So you have to be careful. So that's where the lawyer comes in and says what is right and what is wrong, what will be accepted or not. So it's better that you consult a lawyer, okay, and not just go about doing yourself. Community property rule. In this country, you have to be aware of this. What is this? So what happens is, in this country, if you die, for example, if you have a property, your wife will get probably half of that property by default. So she will get, that's a community property rule. That was a way where a spouse could basically potentially get this property as well. But Islamically, what's the problem? The problem here is that you cannot give property the way the government wants it to give. You have to specify properly who is going to get how much by the fractions itself. Okay, so inshallah, I think let's leave it here. We are done with it. One final thing that I just have to mention here is inheritance taxes. So it's amazing, it's very strange that I see people saying that your inheritance tax in this country, it can go from 30% to even 60%. Can you believe it? 60% of your wealth, who's taking it? Government is taking it. So if you have a lawyer, he will find ways for you how to reduce that taxes to, you want all your money to be going to your relatives, right? You don't want government to be taking. So that's correct, yeah. So subhanAllah. So you have to be careful. That's why, unfortunately, in this country, you have to go through a lawyer, talk to him very detailedly, know about all these things. So now since you know importance of it, even if you have $10,000 leaving behind, you don't want government to be taking half of it. So that's where it comes in.